How's it going, everybody? Welcome to The Hang. First, I want to introduce my co-host, Dave Pollock.
Hey, everybody. What's up, Ryan?
Dave, it's good to see you, bro.
Dude, great to see you in person. Warm weather.
Warm weather.
Loving it.
We'll give some hints. So warm weather. We're in shorts and short sleeves. We're in a gigantic superstructure of a building. And we're hanging with not a native of this place, but one of the legendary musicians of this establishment. Not only is he a virtuosic saxophone player, he is a mega athlete, Iron Man, if you will. And most importantly, he's my dad, Mr. Scott Devlin.
Hey. Hey.
Yeah, man.
That's the best intro ever. And I've seen a lot of intros for this podcast, too.
Yeah.
But when you say, my dad, it feels good, man.
Well, man.
Number one fan of the podcast?
Yeah.
Number one fan of the podcast?
Absolutely number one fan of the podcast.
Yes. I've watched all of them at least twice, sometimes 3 times.
Wow.
Step up your game, everybody.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, dude.
Really
Thank you for
appreciate
doing
it.
Dad, yeah, man.
We're looking forward to this one.
What's up, everybody? Dave and Ryan here. So sorry to take you away from today's episode. We just have something exciting to announce.
We have a brand new PDF package that we're bringing to you called How to Hang on a Jazz Standard, 2 Approaches to the Same Tune.
In this PDF package, there's 10 etudes from each Dave and I, all transposed B flat, E flat, and C, and it's both of our approaches to the same tune. We also have over 2.5 hours of video footage of us analyzing everything that we played. I'm thinking C7 altered, ba 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 ba, pretty much like a Donna Lee phrase, right?
And you could pick it up today, and all you have to do is go to davepollock.com/store.
Now, back to the episode. We just want to thank Disney for having us. We are filming on location at the Disney Contemporary Hotel.
Yeah.
One of the original, I think it was the original hotel when Magic Kingdom was built. I think it was Contemporary, then Polynesian.
In the order of that, I think they all kind of opened up at the same time. There was no Grand Floridian. By the way, I can go into all this Disney history.
We will absolutely.
I can probably cover most of it for you, but yeah, this was this is one of the original hotels.
Well, we're also filming across from, maybe Dan can even show it on camera, but across the hall from us right here is the Ballroom of Americas, where you do a lot of your Disney Magic Music Days clinics, right?
Yep. Which is now Disney Imagination Campus.
Got the hat?
You got the hat, got the merch.
Got the hat.
But yeah, that's one of our locations for the workshops that I do throughout the year with high school and middle school bands that come down to the parks and they want to perform, and sometimes they do a educational workshop in addition to that, or sometimes they do just the workshop. Anyway, this is one of our locations. So many months throughout the year, I'm here all the time directing the bands and doing soundtrack work with these guys.
And you were
pretty cool.
you were saying that that is the Ballroom America, and it's famous because of a presidential thing?
Yeah, so when it first opened in 1971, I think this is when it happened, Richard Nixon, some of you will remember that name, some of you might not. He was the president back then, and he gave his very famous I am not a crook speech in the Ballroom of the Americas. So that's a tidbit not a lot of people might know, or maybe they don't care, but that's what makes this place famous is back then. Yeah,
it's amazing. And now you're teaching people how to play Disney film scores in there, which is awesome.
That's part of the workshop. It's very unique, and we have bands, orchestras, doing it all throughout the year, different sizes. It's great.
Yeah,
we have a great time doing it.
That's awesome.
I have to pause for a second. You
That's
guys
Kenny
hear
G.
that? You
That's
hear Kenny
100%
playing?
Kenny G in the background.
Oh yeah,
I turned and heard.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute.
whoa.
The background music.
Kenny, where you at?
Little quick context is the reason why, besides this podcast, that Dave and our Dan behind the camera is here is we saw Kenny G last night. I'm sure we'll insert some clips and whatever. But
can I introduce you to 2 young, great saxophone players in the audience tonight? Okay, so there's Ryan Devlin over here. Ryan, stand up. You know Ryan? All right. And there's Dave right there. Dave is standing up. These 2 guys are kick-ass sax players. I mean, they play stuff. And so thank you guys for watching me play. I really appreciate it. I don't deserve you in the audience, so I really, just admire that. So if you want to check those guys, Ryan Devlin, Dave Pollock, look them up on Instagram. Watch these guys play. They play a million more notes than me, and much better too. So anyway, thank you, Kenny. And also one last thing is one of my songs earlier I played "Forever in Love." I don't know if you remember that song, but I want to dedicate that to Scott Devlin right here. Yeah. It means a lot to me. It was only me, so this is Scott. I give that to you. It was my pleasure to play it for you tonight. Yes, sir. That song was really important to you. So, thank you very much.
Nice little tidbit.
Yeah.
But getting into the episode here, we usually ask our guests, the first thing that we asked, I just wanted to give a little context as to where we were, but the first thing that we ask is if you could introduce yourself to somebody that has absolutely zero idea with who you are and what you do, how would you explain yourself in one word? It doesn't even have to be professionally. Like, just who is Scott Devlin and why should people care?
That is a good question. Why should they care? I'm just a musician that's been here on property as a Disney musician for 35 years now. I'm, like a lot of the musicians here and everywhere, I grew up playing music. I started in 5th grade back in the suburbs of Chicago. I was in a Catholic school, so we did this band with a bunch of the Catholic grade schools that are around. And we had one band director that would come to each of the schools and start. And so I just started there. And I think I started playing saxophone first. Then I moved to clarinet and flute later. But I started on saxophone because I really didn't know what instrument I wanted until I heard one of my dad's records. And my parents were not musicians at all. They were like forced to play piano when they were a kid. And this was back in the era where you had to still do like Latin in school and everything. So it was very old school. So they had to learn piano. They didn't really enjoy it much. But my dad had a record collection that was small, but he had Glenn Miller's greatest hits. And I remember on the record player playing, In the Mood. And hearing that boo-ba-doo, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-doo, and I would ask my dad, what instrument is that? Like in 5th grade, he's like, I think that's the saxophone. Like he wasn't even sure. Playing the melody, right? So when I went, the first day my band director said, what do you want to play? I said, I'd like to play the saxophone. And he asked me why. I said, because of that song. And he said, good choice. So Mike Finley was his name. He went to Vandercook College of Music in Chicago. Anyway, so I started on saxophone in like 5th grade. Back in Illinois, they start like a year earlier than here in Florida. And I came up through, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. I caught on pretty quick. I liked it a lot. Played solos. I wasn't afraid to play a solo piano in front of the whole band. They would pick soloists to play. I was one of those guys. And then went to Maine South High School in Park Ridge, great band program, great legendary band director Gordon McLean at that time. And I just took off through there and started playing jazz and studying improv in high school. And then University of Iowa, music ed, 5 years. Sorry, Mom and Dad, 5-year plan. I was having too much fun playing in ensembles and stuff. So I did 5 years at Iowa. I was heavy in music ed, marching band, all that. And then came and auditioned for Disney after that. Spent a couple summers playing in some Disney college bands. That used to be a great feeder program for the professional musicians here on property. I mean, a lot of people came through there for the different Disney bands that they had in the summer, and then they would graduate, or they'd go back and graduate and come back and audition at Disney and get in. So still a lot of my friends my age came up through the college bands. Anyway, I did that while I was at Iowa.
Did that twice?
Yeah, I did it twice. We did a marching band in like 1986, and then I did a show band. It was an 8-piece band, 4 rhythm, 4 horns. I did that the summer after I graduated from Iowa, and I just stayed on. Back then it was similar to now. I just met a couple of people that were musicians, or just people that we played volleyball with, I think. And then the guy's like, "Oh yeah, I'm looking for a roommate," and okay, well I'm trying to stay here, so you sleep on a mattress or whatever. And then back then, if there wasn't a musician opening, there wasn't even an open call back then. You just had to kind of like find a job. Like some people were just character performers or something. Like my first gig was doing the Toy Soldiers, right? I was a toy soldier in the Disney Christmas Parade in 1989. And I didn't play anything, I wasn't even one of the trumpet players. I was just marching, with my hands in the socket thing and doing that, because there was no gigs or open call. So to become a sub, I had to wait around for some kind of audition. So I wanted to pay the bills, so I got in there and then auditioned and became a sub, I think, a couple months later, and just subbed and did a bunch of different things until a full-time gig came in. And then I was full-time in the Magic Kingdom Band for, 25 years, about 15 years with the band, marching and playing clarinet, sax, leading the band, sub-leading. And then our sax quartet formed in 2000 and went to 2015 in the Magic Kingdom. So I did that. And so that's a total of 25 full-time. And then the gig got clipped, and I became a sub in different places and did the clinics and all that. And so I'm still going, doing different things. But there you go. There's the brief history of who I am, I guess.
Oh, I was just going to say, just real quick off what you were saying, you said you played in those, the band in there, the quartet or the quintet and all that. What horns were you playing? You said clarinet, but were you playing, which saxophone or saxophones were you playing?
The funny story.
Because I know I've seen some pictures of you with some big saxophones.
Yeah. So in the quartet, I
people
played,
need to know that.
Sure. Yeah. In the quartet, I played bass sax almost exclusively. Now, a couple things about that if you want to delve into that gig, because it's the musicians around here, all of them very versatile. Now, I played bass sax because I knew no one else would want to play it because it's a pain in the ass. I mean, sorry, it's a pain. Heavy.
Let it fly.
It's just heavy. You don't get all the interesting parts for everything. You rarely play the melody, occasionally on a novelty tune or whatever. So, but I said, I'm going to do this for sure. And then throughout the gig, though, we would have to change and learn different parts because to make the gig work, if you brought in a sub that only knew the tenor book, some guys would have to slide over. Like if our tenor player was there, he would have to slide over and play soprano. Or if we pulled in another guy that said, what do you want to play today? You want to play bass? Okay, you play bass. I'll slide over and play alto. So we had guys in the group that were very versatile and could switch off. And later on, they just learned another book just so they wouldn't get bored. You know, like, oh, I'm going to learn this book because I've been playing this for so many years. I'm just going to do a little more playing. So we made it work that way. But I led the group the whole time for 15 years. I led the group. I played bass sax, and called the tunes, did the scheduling and all that kind of stuff. And
didn't you visit here, like when you were with your mom and dad, granddad and grandmother, and in like, I can't remember what year, but we have a picture of you as a kid in front of the saxophone quartet, and grandmother and granddad told me that you after that you said, I'm going to do that job someday. Well, the real story on that is, and a lot of the guys in the park know this picture because I had it in my locker for a while. So that's the picture, I was 12 years old. I just started playing, right? And, your grandmother, my mother, was very influential, and sometimes I always say I had two dads because she was pretty, I wouldn't say tough, but she was very positive and she would say a lot of really strong things to help motivate us. And one of the things, like when we came to Disney, she would say, "You see those guys up there? They're playing this out. You could do that. Yeah. You could do that someday." And I'm like, I know 5 notes. I'm like, you don't understand. They're doing all this crazy stuff. But
there's only 12 though. So if you already need 5, you only need 7 more to go.
Right. Yeah. So
40% there.
Good point. But she was very motivating that. So I kept that. Yeah, I kept that in my mind as I practiced music and got better. She said, "You can do this. You can do this." So yeah, there's that famous picture. 3 of those guys I actually got to play with professionally. Mm-hmm. What would have been, I don't know, 10 years after that photo was taken. Wow. So I traveled through music and got my degrees and my experience and got good enough to actually end up playing with them on a daily basis. It's crazy. 3 of those guys. So, I don't like to use the analogy or the title of this, but like dreams come true. Like that was definitely one of my dreams, was to play at Disney. Some of the guys that came in, they just took the gig because it was the gig. They weren't like in love with the Disney experience. Some of the guys have never been here, or they got off military bands and they're just like, yeah, we're doing this theme park gig. But my way in was, we came here on vacation and we're like, if I could end up doing that. And later on, I realized that the level of playing, was amazing too, right? Back then, when I was 12 years old, I just thought it was cool to march down Main Street and whatever. But you realize the level of musicianship that they pick with these musicians is top notch. So that made me feel good because I felt like I was on a level with them. Man, the YouTube videos of the sax quartet that you were in for many years are incredible. I mean, all of the music is such high quality, and then also the instrumentalists in the quartet at the Hollywood Studios before you, like with Danny Jordan, Rex, all those guys. I mean, those, you gave me those recordings when I was in middle school and high school, and those were very influential. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, sure. I mean, it's killing stuff. 1993, they went into the studio with the quintet. So killing. I got to show you these things. They're amazing. Yeah, and all all the charts are in house, so none of this is published. It's all in house arrangements, which is good and challenging at the same, because those guys in that group were so good and had so many chops that they started to make their own arrangements a little bit away from what the traditional public would probably expect to hear. So but they did it smart. They had their Disney arrangements, and then they had stuff like everything from Four Brothers to even like Recordame, Night Tunisia, where they could stretch and do that.
Man.
And we adopted the same thing. When we played in Magic Kingdom, we had our killer charts where we could, unleash a couple of guys in the group if we had a captive audience, and it was like tune 2 or 3. So there's two, if you're a Disney musician, you have two audiences. You have the transient audience that's just going by you and waving and isn't that cool and see you later.
Yeah.
And then you have people that just actually stop and they listen to a tune, and then more people gather for the next tune. And, we, of course, have shtick and we have announcements and all this stuff. And, as leader, I have to read the crowd to see what I'm going to play. If there's a lot of little kids, we can play certain tunes. If there's adults that are listening for different things, we can do that. But those guys had these arrangements that were super killing, written by 2 or 3 extremely good arrangers within the group, so they could write for the guys, and so that was some of the videos of that. And what we listened to, of course. Why wouldn't I have you listen to that? Yeah, it came from that group. I think they recorded in '93, including Danny Jordan, and Brian Snapp was in there for a while.
I just think to myself, like, it was. I took it for granted growing up because I was so close to, like, I tell people all the time, like, going to Disney on the weekend to go see Dad play. It was like crazy, And I took it for granted that just walking down, Main Street, hearing like extremely great saxophone arrangements and quartet and people.
That's not like a normal thing.
No. Like hearing like
you don't get that
great solos like on Four Brothers or whatever it was, like walking at Disney World. I completely just thought that was the normal thing, and then it's like you hear stories of people that grow up in like Nebraska and like, trying to learn jazz and stuff. And they're like, I don't get exposed to any of this stuff. And I was like, well, I could just go to Disney and watch my dad do it. It's pretty crazy. And it was also, one other thing I wanted to add was the amount of tunes that these guys had memorized.
Yeah.
Was insane. Every time I saw you guys play, you never repeated a song.
Jeez.
So a couple of things about that. First of all, the groups at Disney were back in the day when there was more instrumentalists than there is now, were so good that, guys in the band were like, oh, do you know who's in today with the Rhythm Rascals? Oh, who's in today? Oh, Alan Vichet and Jim Buckman. Like, these are 2 world-class jazz clarinet players. And so guys in the woodwind section, are you going to go up and listen to them? So on our break, we would kind of like down dress a little bit, right? Because we couldn't go up in our costume. We would down dress a little bit and go up there and watch their set in between our set.
Wow.
Because they were calling tunes, and these 2 guys, like Jim Snyder and all.
Yeah,
so we would go up and watch John Allred. We would go up and watch these guys on the break because it was so good back then.
That's crazy.
That was back in the day.
Wow.
I love that. I mean, we could talk just about that all day, but I want to talk about, when did you make the transition into, I guess, more of, because I don't know exactly, but more of the educational side and bringing in, like, when high school bands come in or whatever, like when did that happen, and like how did that kind of transition,
So
to that
that program started in 1996. So they had an open call audition for people that felt comfortable with conducting and wanted to teach kids backstage workshop, in music.
What
That's
year?
all it was, 1996.
Okay.
So I just started my 28th year doing this.
Wow.
Me and one other guy were like the originals on that. So I had my degree in music ed, and I was already teaching. As soon as I came to town, I did private lessons and things like that. I might have worked with a couple of high school bands, but I had a full-time gig, so I wasn't doing that much. But I was always interested in it and always teaching, and that's what my degree was in. And, if I hadn't have gotten the Disney audition, I would probably have started my career as a middle school or high school band director, wherever, Illinois, Florida, I don't know. But I started as a player, but I always taught. So when that came up, I said, I'm going to definitely audition, for that, and became one of the clinicians of that, and just loved it. And every year it grew. I mean, we used to have one location. Now we have, like, here at the Contemporary, or there's like 3 or 4 locations. Sometimes there's 5 workshops a day. Like during the spring break time, it's bands in and out, 5 a day, and it's crazy. So yeah, the transition just happened when that gig came up, and then through that, I ended up doing more, I guess, when I was playing full time, little side jobs of judging high school bands at different festivals around Orlando. Your name gets around. Going into the different schools and being everything from jazz band guy to woodwind sectional guy to, hey, can you run my band for 30 minutes? I got to go I have to go talk to the principal.
Yeah.
So it was a whole bunch of stuff, and developed some friendships with the directors here in town, which is high level. I mean, Orange County got to be one of the strongest counties in the United States for high school band. Okay, really good. So I'm in a good place for that too. So that's how the transition. And my degree never really left. Like I kept it going, but I think maybe in the last 10 or 15 years, or certainly since I lost my full time in 2015, that I've been doing more of that.
Yeah, and I have to say to attest to how good it was. So a couple of years back, we brought our high school bands, all the bands down. We were just allowed to travel after COVID. It was like spring of 22.
Yeah.
And we did this thing, and then I heard through you, like, hey, man, my dad might be teaching. It was like between you and maybe someone else, and we happened to get you.
Yeah.
And it was like a 3-hour clinic, and we played along. We were like sight reading a bunch of stuff out of the book, and then we played it. We recorded a couple things, and put it to the movie. It was like a Lion King thing, and it was cool. It was like so neat, and you did such a great job, and like so energetic, and it was like everybody was like so into it. And it was cool. And you brought your horn out. You were playing a little bit.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah.
It
That's
was
the
great.
best part.
So I got to say that,
Yeah.
if you ever get a chance to work with Mr. Devlin, take that opportunity. It was great.
See,
It was really cool.
And there's like 7 of us instrumental clinicians, and they're all great. Everybody's different in their own way, but the script is there. So what we want to accomplish with the group is the same, and get a good soundtrack recording at the end. But everybody else has different ways. I like to play, and I have my scripted thing I've developed, and everybody else has theirs. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. My favorite time of year.
That's awesome.
My favorite time of year.
Yeah, man. I want to talk a little bit about your music education path yourself. So, when you got to the college, because you said that you were very confident in your playing ability and all this stuff. I think some people struggle, especially in my age group and a little bit younger, of like knowing what to do when they like get to the college level. Like, what do I major in? So, like, why did you choose music education and not performance?
My high school band director suggested I do it that way, and I really had a lot of respect for him. Plus, he went to the University of Iowa, so I kind of wanted to, check that out a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, even back then, it's the same as now. Like a performance degree, you still have to be able to play great. You can have whatever degree in the world, but if you don't play great at the audition, it doesn't matter where you go. But if you have an ed degree, then you have a little bit more chance at a job. Plus, I truly just wanted to teach. I mean, that was, I wanted to be a player, but I wasn't like, oh, I want to, be a jazz club day player for my profession, or I want to tour with the Rolling Stones. Or I really wanted to work at Disney as a performer, and my degree in music ed helped me play and probably also develop like the other skills that I would use later for the teaching, like the marching band thing and everything else. So I remember Magic Kingdom Band, like I was like, you'd march down the street, and I was like, we got to have straight lines guy. Because I came from that whole world, right? And I was like the only one in the band really doing that. Now, they were keeping straight lines, but no one really like dressed militarily for this, So I would always get like this tick because I looked down the line and like guys are out of line, and I couldn't say anything because I was the young guy, right? But I thought, well, I'll just pay attention as much as I can, and I'm guiding left and guiding right.
Dress the line.
That's what's going on in my mind. But
that's awesome.
But the respect I had for them was pretty strong. So I didn't say anything because that's, you get a lot of good advice as a young musician, from older players, whether you take it or not,
right,
is the right thing. But going back to your question, the ed thing is still, I still feel it's the same way. If you have an ed degree, you have more options. If you have a performance degree, as long as you can play amazingly when those auditions come up, because they'll never look at your resume. They might just go, oh, yeah, I know. Oh, you're going to Juilliard. Oh, yeah, great. I know him. Okay, let's hear you play. Oh, you stink. Okay, well, next, And this person is from like Grand Valley State or whatever, and then they slay it, then you're going to get the gig.
Right. That's a good point. We always have this point in the podcast where it's just been way too positive. This is way too happy.
Oh, yeah.
So,
with all
of
Here we go.
And I prepped you for this, and you're a watcher of the episodes, so you know. But with all these Disney, you've played hundreds of thousands of gigs here at Disney and beyond. We have a segment called Horrible Gig Stories.
Okay.
So we would love to hear a couple of them if you got more than one, but just give us a horrible gig story.
I wish I could say that something caught on fire like Charlie said, right?
It was almost him.
So he was like, there's a fire. There's a fire. And I was like, oh, God.
That was crazy.
right. Things like that. Well, first of all, so horrible gig story. So the overview is at Disney, things sometimes mess up on a huge scale, but really, and they get fixed really quickly, and everybody here is great with that. So I have 3. The first one is I was playing clarinet at first. When my first permanent gig at Magic Kingdom was third clarinet. I was the most proud.
Oh man, that is a horrible gig.
I was the most proud.
Oh, that's not the end of the. That's
I know,
not the
right?
story.
Right? Yeah. All
It's like playing second alto
Did you ever
in a
play
big
above
band.
G?
No one
Yeah.
wants to play the second alto book.
No,
you know
no,
what I mean?
Second tenor?
Oh, yeah, that's even worse.
I became,
Sorry.
I was, no, that's all right. I'm very proud to be second alto guy and section guy for most of my career. So I was playing third clarinet, very proud third clarinet player. But anyway, marching down Main Street, one of my keys had worked its way out, like the pin screw had popped it, I was practicing a lot, whatever, I didn't notice it. So my key falls off on Main Street, like as I'm marching down, right? We're playing the Mickey Mouse March, there's people filming us, and I have like my key falls on. So I had to bend down, pick up the key. I couldn't put it together, so I had to put it in my pocket and just fake it, march down Main Street. And of course, I got a lot of crap from the guys, but had to get through the whole set, and then I think, fixed it backstage with like the paperclip trick that you do. You bend a paperclip, whatever, and then I think somebody else lent me their clarinet for the rest of the day. So that was embarrassing, number one. Also playing clarinet, everybody would take their mouthpiece cap off, put it in their back pocket, and march down the street. And then when we stopped, they put your mouthpiece cap back on, whatever. So my mouthpiece cap, trying to get it off, it slipped out of my hand and fell onto the street.
Oh, no.
Along comes a little kid. Oh, great, he's going to give me the cap. Kid picks it up and takes off towards the castle, and I never see it again.
Dang.
How many years ago was this? Do you know?
So this would have been, let's see, 1990 to about, I would say probably late 90s at this point.
And he was like how old? Like 10?
Yeah.
So it was like 25 years
They
ago.
could be watching.
So he's like my age. Yo, give him the cap back.
Oh,
What are we doing?
he sold it on eBay by now.
It's worth a lot more now.
Or at
It is
Disney and
a
or
lot
other
more.
conventions. Yeah. Oh, I got this. So he just picked it up, and I was like, oh, you're going to hand it to me, right? Oh, isn't that nice?
What's he doing with it?
Kid just took off.
Probably ate it.
Took off.
Ate it.
That was the two. I think I wrote the third one down. Hold on. Oh, okay.
He's
the
so
third
most prepared guest we've ever had
Yeah.
by far.
Only because there's like so many stories.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. Hey,
that's
I had
great.
a list of like 12.
Oh, man, we'll just go on
Yeah.
this all day.
Hey,
And these are the three.
Charge the
these are the
batteries.
three clean ones that I had to tell you about. So we did a Christmas show on the Castle stage, and it used to be a live pit band that was mainly our band and a couple of other ringers that would come in to fill out the instrumentation. And I was playing Barry sax, bass, clarinet. It was a Christmas show, and it was on tape, and there was a conductor, and he had earpiece. We did, and we just watched, and we knew it was on track. Anyway, the characters on the stage, all the characters, Mickey, Minnie, Goofy, everything was looking great. And they have these snowmen, these characters in these big snowman outfits, still on YouTube. Well, this snowman just lost their way coming from one side of the stage to the other, and took a header a nosedive right into the band with costume on and everything. Wiped out the bass player next to me. His stand crashes over into my stand. We're all, So the snowman, this would have been early 90s, snowman into the pit off the Castle stage Christmas show.
I had the clip, so Dan, put it in.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
show that.
Yeah.
But the show must go on. I mean, we kept going. I know the show didn't go down. I think maybe for a minute it might have gone down after that. I don't remember how we got through that. But they have all these contingencies if things happen like that. So it's the best scenario. They have it worked out for the guests, but it happened. So that was the big one. That caused the most commotion of the ones I can tell you.
fallen. Yeah, that's pretty. I was gonna wonder because like people in costumes to me always seem like there's a chance for chaos.
Yeah.
Like you can't see. It's too high. You fall down.
What? These are amazing. I remember
really
seeing
good.
that clip, and I remember you told me, you're like, you see that stand over there in the clip? That's me. Like,
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's great. What about highest profile gig that you've played here, like for a guest or something like that?
Well, I mean, we marched by celebrities. Michael Jackson back in the mid '90s was on the parade route. He stayed here at the Contemporary actually during that time. Yeah, I mean, like TV specials. We did some TV specials for like the Disney Christmas special where guys like Joey Fatone were there, Dancing with the Stars.
Yep. Yeah.
Sometimes they'll bring in special talent for backstage stuff that you don't know about until they start singing. Or they come out like, oh my gosh, it's Josh Groban or guys from Broadway or people like that. So highest profile. I don't know.
You played some weddings here too, right?
Yeah, I played a few weddings here.
Any celebrity weddings or just like
No
rich
celebrity
people?
wedding, not me, But they happen.
Yeah.
The people in the park you can see tour guides when they take tour guides. When you see them in the park, we always look because usually with someone incognito or someone or someone famous, but we wouldn't find that out till like after. Usually they're pretty good about not letting you know. So I don't really have any, other than President Obama came to the park. We played the parade for that. Super Bowl MVPs. We played all the parades for that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in that kind of context.
Yeah. What about one more weird, horrible thing. So you teach a ton of lessons, and I know you're one of the best teachers I think in America, but I'm biased. But what's your favorite excuse for not showing up to a lesson that you've ever gotten from a student? Like, have you ever gotten like oh man, I have to trim my dog's toenails and I can't come?
No, oh man, I wish I had. No,
You have any good
first
ones?
of all, I feel like I have a pretty good track record because people don't cancel like hardly at all. And I've
good.
had a lot of students that go from 6th grade all the way through high school, so I don't have a lot of that. Most of the time, it's definitely a homework related kind of thing. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But most of the time, it's like I have finals this week, or I have to finish this, or I'm sorry. But we reschedule. It doesn't happen very often. So I wish I had a better answer, but the excuse is that when it does happen is almost always school work related.
I have a crazy one that I don't know if I ever told you.
Oh man.
I don't know if this podcast isn't about me, but
No,
I think you guys will both dig this.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
So this was not a cancellation, but a reason why I didn't practice story.
Ooh, good.
This is wild. So I used to teach private lessons where I would travel to their house, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to my student's house and I went, we were about to start the lesson. We're like in the living room and the kitchen was right over there. And she's like, I said something like, did you practice? She's like, I didn't get to practice this week at all. And she was being kind of weird about it. And I was like, all right, like why? Like I'm usually the person who's like, all right, then you're going to pay me to practice then. Like we're going to just get through it, right?
Right.
So I was like, okay, like why? And she like looked in the other room. She's like, I'll tell you when my dad goes downstairs. And I was like, what did you do now? And I'm like, yo, what did you do? Like, did you get in trouble? Like, come on. It was a high school kid who I knew forever. And her dad goes downstairs and she goes, well, I didn't want to tell you because he gets a little embarrassed. But like this week we were traveling around a lot. And I was like, okay. She goes, because like almost a week ago, he won the Nobel Prize. And I was like,
that's it?
No, like what, like, okay. Like what is, because I was like,
What?
I made that face. I was like, well, he got like an award at work or something. She goes, no. He won the Nobel Prize. So her dad is like works
author or
at
something?
Princeton University as a he like is high up in there in science doing something that my wife probably knows and I don't know.
Sure.
Right? And he I guess was developing something with one partner maybe who like lives in Germany or something, or it was just him, but they found out like 5 days ago that they called him and he won the Nobel Prize for like science something. And so they were like, she was like, yeah, we had to like go up to like New York and we were interviewed by all the New York Times. We were on TV. She's like, so I didn't have any time to practice. But I was like, why didn't you tell me? She was like, he gets like embarrassed when I bring it up. He was like, and I'm like, dude, what?
That's crazy.
So when he came upstairs at the end of the lesson, I was like, hey, I heard you won a science fair. And he's super funny. Then
Nice.
he went because I think he's from like Europe somewhere. Like the next week, we're flying over to Buckingham Palace to get knighted.
That's a pretty good excuse.
So I was like,
and
she's like, yeah. She's like, I don't want to go, but like, I guess I have to. I'm like,
This is
I'm
like
like,
what happens
stop.
when you teach in Princeton, New Jersey.
for real.
Right.
I was
You know
like,
what I
mean?
I'm not gonna say it. I was like, yo, what? But yeah, so it's a long-winded
That's
story. But
wild.
dude, literally the Nobel. I was like,
That's pretty great.
what? She's like, yeah. I'm like, what? Insane. I was like, all right, I guess scales. I don't know. Let's.
Yeah, okay, well, 1, 2, yeah.
What am I doing with my life here?
That's
But
pretty
yeah,
crazy.
but yeah, it is what it is. But she didn't cancel. She just,
Yeah.
was like, hey, didn't practice.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's awesome.
I know
That's good,
it
man.
was a little long-winded, but I had to set it up because
No, I think it's great.
it was insane.
Yeah.
So, real quick before we go into, because I want to definitely go into the non-music stuff.
Yeah, I was just about to go
with
yeah.
iron sax. But before we do that, though, were you Ryan's private teacher growing up?
Yeah. You want to hear the quick synopsis? I'll
yeah,
keep it
and then
quick.
tell me how he was as a student. Yeah, I need to know.
Oh shit!
Not as
So
a son, as a student.
So he grew up in unlike myself, and my parents were not musicians at all. He grew up in a musical household, at least on my side, for teaching lessons. So, even as a little kid, he would get to know the students. And more importantly, he got a chance to hear some really good students and some really good sounds, right? Sound is number one. So we're trying to teach that. And a lot of the students had great sounds. So when he finally came to me and said, Dad, can I play the saxophone? And I realized he's probably the right age. It was like, what, 4th grade?
Somewhere around there.
Okay. I said, yeah, okay. Let's work together. I'm going to be your teacher. And, you have, I didn't lay it on too hard at that time. I wasn't like, this is the way, you better. But you being my son, I had to have a good balance. I knew I had a good balance. I wanted to be fun because you're young, but I also wanted you to realize that you could get better at this. You should enjoy it. And this is the best way to go about it. Okay, so when we started, and I'm sure it was just maybe 1 or 2 days, we might have done like a little bit each day or something. I wouldn't have gone.
I remember
half hour.
for over a week, basically you would come home from work, I think, or over the weekends, and then we would go over 2 things.
Yeah.
And then we would reconvene every 2 days or something like that.
Sure, yeah. Or sometimes maybe you wanted to play after a lesson from another student.
Yeah,
or something,
yeah.
Yeah. But we would start, and the fear is always from the dad side of things. Okay. You're working with your own son, you love him more than anybody else, so you want everything to be exactly right and in place and all that, but you don't want to be overbearing. You don't want to make it seem like you're a tyrant in all those stories you hear about parents, you will do this and what the hell, why aren't you doing this the right way? So I started pretty mellow with you, and I thought that was smart because my teaching with you and just working with you and not making it that huge of a deal at the time, but still trying to instill the right fundamentals, and you got to take care of your instrument. You're young, I didn't want you just throwing a thing around. You got to clean it. You got to do all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
It was tough, but I just, there's no book. You just have to kind of be instinctive and always, love your kid and just have fun playing. And I'm sure we started playing duets for a while, right? And that kind of thing.
Yeah, it was a really inclusive thing. I feel like it made me feel like I was just playing with him, not learning.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was
that's
it was,
right.
and I was also I came to him and asked him about it.
Oh, yeah, I was never going to be, you're going to do this because I do
It was
No,
never like,
I'm
hey,
not that
Ryan, do you
guy.
want to play the saxophone now? Because I
yeah.
probably wouldn't have. And the other thing was, I was everything that he was doing, I was, as a little kid, I was watching and trying to I remember that. And golf was the same way. I had plastic golf clubs when I was 3 years old.
Yeah.
There's videos of me on our VHS of me in the backyard hitting golf balls. You know what I mean? And so, but that was because you introduced me to it, and we would watch golf and Tiger Woods, all this stuff.
You could have been Tiger Woods, man. You never know.
Well, I wasn't today because Dave beat me at mini golf, but well, yeah.
We talk about. We
We'll
don't
show
even
that.
talk about it.
We'll show that later.
That was
but
epic, though. It was
it was an epic. Yeah.
By the way, whenever that comes out and wherever it comes out, it might seem like we set up the drama.
It almost looked scripted. It was so
the way it
perfectly
ended was
timed.
unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah.
But but
the
anyway.
way I came storming back on the back nine.
But it was the other thing I think that played into this was you're a competitive person, a healthy competitive person. You do a lot of things that we'll talk about that are in a sport. And I grew up loving sports and being competitive. So I almost thought of playing my scales and stuff as I wanted to be better than you in a
cool.
healthy way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, man, if Dad can play his scales that fast, I can freaking play my scales that fast.
See, now
So-
there's an interesting thing because that's nothing I gave to you. I didn't say, you can play as good as I can. So
Never.
I never did that. So your growth was real natural.
Yeah.
And I think, once again, that young, it's just got to be fun, and you got to just set up the right fundamentals. So if you keep going, because who knows, if you keep going, when you're that young, you start things for a week, and then the next thing you know is that's gone, and then you pick up something else. And as long as as long as he never plays viola, I think we'll be okay.
We all know the difference between a viola and violin, right?
Yeah,
The viola
they
burns
burn longer.
Yes. Thank you.
There's some that are
Thank you.
universal, but so he,
Do you know how big the range of a viola is?
how big?
About 30 yards if you have a good arm.
Okay.
Oh, dun-dun-dun.
He's talking good about me. You can't.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was a natural development. And as the years went go by, then when you got in school band,
Yeah.
we started doing the audition track. Okay, because this is with my students from way long ago till now. I track them to audition for everything that I encourage
Yeah.
them to audition for anything that gets them into a place where they can be better. All county bands, all state stuff, all that. So I take that pretty seriously. A lot of the band directors I work with are very pro on that. Some spend more times on that specifically in their band room than others, but whatever. But the students learn to try and get good at auditions and that specific skill to be able to grow. And you started that like early in 6th grade. And I'll just premise this by saying there's 2 moments. Your mom and I would hold hands tightly when you played your first piano recitals, and this is exactly like you think, right? Here's the parents thinking. In my head, I'm going, "Oh my God, don't screw up! Oh my God, if this could be that man. Oh my God, if he caves, what if he like gets up and starts crying because he loses his place? Because I think you were doing by memory, right? What this is it, man? Like I was squeezing Tanya's hand. I'm like, this is a big deal. Like what's my backup plan to this? Like how am I going to handle this if it goes south? And you just got up there and played like it was nothing. I mean, you weren't Oscar Peterson or anything. Hot cross buns.
I was Art Tatum, actually.
You were Art, yeah. We called you Art Irritatum is actually what it was.
That's a good one.
Thanks.
Oh, wow.
We'll talk about face names later.
Yeah,
That's all
yeah.
But
That's
you
great.
played,
That's a good one.
Thank you. I learned a lot from the guys on that too. But you played great, and we went, oh, that's great. So when you started playing saxophone, you had a natural non-nervous kind of inclination for whatever reason. I don't know.
I think it was watching you. You know what I mean? Like I think
Sure, you see
seeing
somebody.
your dad or a family member like just perform all the time, and it's just like, oh, there's dad doing his job. Like I felt like it
Right.
made me like, okay, you know, here I'm going to do what dad does. You know what I mean?
I say this as a parent and to younger parents now because I'm now an older parent. I can't believe it, but your kids pay way more attention to what you do than you think. You think, oh, he's not looking at me. You know, why would they follow what I'm doing? But there's so much of a sponge effect that you don't realize.
Yep.
So I like talk to my young parents. If they ask me advice, I'll say you just watch everything you say, and they're watching and listening to you more than you think.
Riley says I am turning into like you sometimes at
sorry.
the house. No, it's fine.
so
I love it. She goes, Ryan, you that's exactly what your dad would say. Like she's like, you know.
That happens across the board. I think
I love it.
to
Yeah,
families,
it's great.
whether they're in music or not. But anyway, that's something I thought about. But you did great, and you came up through all the audition process, and it built your confidence. And you know, a great thing I hear on some other podcasts and Instagram reels and stuff is just, you know, cultivate something you're really good at. You know, that there's that one guy that says the worst advice ever is follow your dreams, you know, and then he goes on to say what you want to do is keep working at what you're best at the moment, and usually what you're best at you're going to enjoy anyway, okay? And then if other things come out, great, but try and, as you're a kid, you want to find something, I think, that makes you feel confident and you feel good at so you have a place. Because I see a lot of students that like band is their only place, and you can tell like, oh my God, if this kid quits, you know, who knows what can happen. You get that vibe, and so yeah, with you it was pretty smooth and everything, and I could keep tabs on it. But yeah, I mean, you know, being in music education and keeping these kids going in a great activity that they feel they're good at, or even if they're not that great, that they just love doing. God, let's keep that going.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
So that's your thing, man. You're still going, you know.
Yeah,
you're
every
still
day.
going. I'm very proud of you.
And I think thank you. I think another thing about what was great about growing up and taking lessons with you is you encouraged me to take lessons with other people too. Like you weren't
For
like
sure.
gatekeeping like, well, my son's not going to take lessons with that guy because, you know, and I remember when I really started getting into playing tenor and like jazz stuff, you were like, I can give you these recordings and stuff, but I want to show you one of my friends that is like playing at Cirque du Soleil and doing all this stuff. And I remember those lessons also changed my life. Like,
For
you
sure.
know what I mean?
That's
Yeah.
an ego thing too, you know. And I other fathers and stuff is like they would probably maybe not have enough confidence in themselves to let them take lessons with anybody else, you
Right.
know, or you know, because then you develop a love for that person or that teacher, and maybe if you're insecure, you would be affected by that.
Right.
I'm not that way, and I'm the total opposite. Who can I expose my son to? And with all the musicians that are so great at Disney that I knew,
Yeah.
and were cool enough to come by and play,
Yeah.
it was like the greatest thing ever.
Oh my God,
right?
yeah.
So there was a point where, yeah, I mean, I taught you early jazz stuff and the early theory, and then once we got to that point where I would come home from work, I'd drive up the driveway, and I'm like, oh, I think I hear a record. Somebody's playing a record. Oh, Ryan's playing the blues scale. He's improvising. You know, seventh grade. So once that happened, I'm like, yeah, we got to get to a teacher that can take you to the next level, jazz wise. I stayed with the classical and did all the fundamental stuff, right, and band stuff, but and auditions. But jazz, Elaine Burdett, and then the
Charlie
guys,
Bertini.
John DePaula, Paul Scavardi, even the banjo player.
Yep, the banjo player
I'm sure
came over a
one
lot.
of the few dads that's ever had his son play with a banjo player intentionally.
Right. Speaking of you pulling up the driveway and playing, I remember there's two little stories I want to say about that.
Sure.
One is I remember I always loved practicing what I thought Dad would want me to practice when he was running up the driveway. So I'd always like switch to scales or something because I was like, oh man, he's gonna really love if I'm practicing my scales.
He doesn't want to know that I've been playing impressions for the last 2 hours.
Right.
Yeah, like only just like playing this Brecker transcription that I can barely do for the last 13 hours. But I remember that. And then the other thing is so we used to have a landline, right, at our house. And Dad would always make the voicemail, like, hey, thanks for calling the Devlin household. And the last one before everybody got an individual cell phone, I was playing tenor, and I was just getting into Michael Brecker and stuff. It's probably about my sophomore year of high school, maybe junior year. And so I didn't know this because I was in a room practicing, and he goes to hit the voicemail to record like his voiceover, and in the background entirely, he's like yelling into the mic because I'm playing so loud in the background, just whatever. I don't even remember what it was. It was probably a bunch of nonsense, me trying to do something. But he's like, thank you for calling the Devlin house. This is Scott and Tanya. It's just it's hilarious. And I wish we could have it somehow, but it's probably lost forever. But
that'd be so funny.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was great to practice in that environment.
So anybody that's watching the podcast wanted to know what it was like growing up as Ryan Devlin in the house. It was a lot of playing, a lot of fun, a lot of love. Everything was cool. And then I got to say this one thing: my wife Tanya and my daughter Kelly put up with a lot because
they put up with a lot.
Every night it was Ryan playing in the front part of the room, and I was playing in the back part of the room, and they were really trapped like in the middle of the house. And there were earphones and all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Tanya would come to me all the time. Will you please tell your son to stop playing so loud? Will you please tell your son? And I had to go in and like, Ryan, you're going to damage yours, man. Like, hey, man. And then I would turn around and secretly go, yes, he's got a sound.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And
big old sound.
My mom's biggest thing is when I was practicing, it was getting too late. It came to a point where she didn't even want to say it because she knew I would be like, Mom, one more tune. She would just come in and turn my light off. It was awesome.
Yeah, my dad used to knock on the
funny.
ceiling.
Yeah.
Because we had a 3-floor thing. He would knock on the ceiling at 9 p.m. every day, or 9 p.m., every night for me to stop playing. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the summer before I went to undergrad, I did the whole 6 hours a day thing for like a week. And I felt, or maybe not even a full week, but I remember like I felt really bad because like Kelly and Mom were both home all day because it was summer. And they just heard my same stuff, for 6 hours,
But that's important.
Yeah.
Here's another thing. I want to ask you this thing about how you feel about this certain practice regiments and things like that, because I like doing a 6-hour thing or whatever, or doing any kind of consistent practice, to me is getting more and more challenging to have your kids do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on.
God, yeah.
It's not the same old romantic thing where you go to the shed or you move up north and you spend 3 weeks in a cabin somewhere working on your craft. It's not that at all. There's so many distractions. But I remember, I didn't have to really. Maybe a few times I had to remind him to practice or something. But he was a very self-motivated practicer, and I know we talked a lot about making practice fun, and it shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't be like your algebra homework or whatever. So the kids that seem to get that or buy into that or assimilate that kind of personality and positiveness in their practice, they always they always get in these. If I had to make a common denominator of who's doing better at the high school level. Okay, if you're in an honor band or all-state, you're doing that. Now, some people just have the innate talent. Most of them have to work at it a lot, and the consistent practicers who enjoy it and talk shop and do all that are the ones that are in the band, and they have a ton of fun doing it. So what do you think?
Well, the thing is, I mean, like you said, there's so many different distractions, and where I teach now is a very high-achieving academic district, and they play sports, so they're doing a million. And the school that I teach at too, without going too deep into it, they give these kids a ton of homework every day. So they're doing hours and hours.
It's like an Ivy League high school.
Basically it's like Ivy League prep.
Okay.
And one of the things that I always said, and this was even when I was teaching middle school for years, was 10-10-80, I call it. the bottom 10% of kids, their parents are making them do it or something, or they're doing it for whatever reason. And they'll tell you, I'm only here because my mom's making me. Okay, fine.
Right.
The top 10% are the kids who are self-motivated. They really enjoy it. It's their thing. They're going to do that. And the other 80% in the middle, those are the ones who I always like. I mean, I try to teach everybody, obviously, but like those are the ones who I feel like I can have the biggest impact on. So like the kids who were like, yeah, I like it, but like, you know, I can't dedicate this much time to it. So that whole thing of practicing hours and hours every day, like those top 10% of kids, I think are still doing that. They are finding ways to do it because it's always that thing of like, if you ever want to have somebody do a task, find the most busy person you know to do it because they're good at time management. And so these kids who are also really good at music, the top 10% are also probably in varsity sports or an AP. We have a lot. There's kids that I know that take 4 AP classes at the school, and they're like, "Why can we only take 4?" And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah,
you know. But those are the kids who they make time. They're just like up late. They do this. They do that. So it's tough. So you know, I'm trying to instill that. I'm trying to teach the 80% too, because like I said, the top 10%, a lot of time, they're already taking private lessons. They're the ones who are easy to teach because I'm like, on the side, I'm like, hey, like work on this part of my course, like take this. They're like, okay.
Yeah.
But the other kids like who are, you know, kind of in the middle, it's tough to balance all that.
Yeah.
And because on one hand, they're like they'll say, my mom says I can't practice until I finish all my homework. But I'm like, well, band is a class here. Practicing is kind of like homework.
Yeah.
But they only see it as they're very wired, a lot of these kids, of like grades and accomplishing for a test. So like if I say, hey, you're going to be great on this tomorrow, you have to learn these 16 bars, like they'll do that.
Yeah.
But that motivation of just like this abstract thing of getting better is hard to convey. And I think, I mean, without sounding, you know, like I'm being phased out, it's getting harder and harder.
Yeah.
As there's, you know, as we get older and older and they are getting more separated, it's that getting them to just be motivated, like self-motivated, and tell them, hey, if you work on it, you could do great things. You could do this. They're like, well, what school is it going to get me into? And what's my job going to be? I'm already planning.
Yeah.
They plan their whole future when they're 10 years old.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm not saying you have to be a professional musician. Just because you do All-State doesn't mean you have to be a professional.
Right.
But, you know, it's
going to help you in other ways for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like, listen, if you can still do those things and not have to practice 6 hours a day, but like the consistent practice and actually putting some time into it more than just, okay, I have my band songs for the concert. I'm going to practice up till that point and then stop.
Yeah.
There's got to be, you got to go beyond it a bit.
Yeah.
And most of the time when they trust me and do it, they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
That was like cool that I was able to do that, or, you know, get a new opportunity or something.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we talked about that with
It's
Jack,
tough.
with Jack Tyler, the Boston Sax
Yeah.
Shop CEO, like how it's really intimidating nowadays to be a up and coming saxophone or just musician in general, because you go on Instagram and then you see people either faking it or doing it for real that are like out there performing and have this persona, and it's like, well, shoot, like I'm intimidated. You know, you get people that are immediately like, I don't want to do that. There's already a million people doing it that are more. There's so much. I have so much room. I can't see the end. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they'd rather quit than even. A lot of them would rather quit than just.
Yeah, because they're way too intimidated.
I'm going to go on my own path. Like, listen, there's only one person who is the best in the world, right? So like everybody else, it's not a waste.
No.
There has to be room.
I've made my living as a section player my entire career. A lot of people in the section, you know.
And everybody loves you. That's why you get called.
Hey,
I don't know a single person in Orlando that has a bad thing about Scott Devlin. I'm serious.
and if you do, keep it to yourself.
Yeah, if you do, leave in the comments.
No, it's great. It's a great. Well, this town is a great place. Sometimes there are years where there's more work than others, for sure.
Sure.
But the musicians are great, and I had a chance when I was young and in the band to learn from all these experienced musicians.
Yeah.
And take in all the, you know, you have to be serious about this, but you should be lighthearted about this. You have to be the hang has to be great. You can't be a complete jerk. You know, there's people that play just as good as you. Don't worry. So if you're a jerk, you're not going to get the gigs, even though you think you're a great player.
Right.
There's all these things. I was so lucky at that time to be the young kid in the group. In fact, my face name was the Kid for like 5 years. I was the only guy unmarried in the group or undivorced. Learned a lot for that too. But so I got, you know, cultivated, and I always, you know, wanted to show respect to these older musicians, guys that had come off the road, out of military bands, out of whatever. There's just freaking phenomenal musicians. So it was easy for me just to respect them, and I also learned a lot. You know, things like, kid, if they don't know you were in today, you did a great job. You know, like, makes sense. Like, some people would say, oh, I got to make a statement. I want everybody to know how freaking good I am. Here I go. But if you're playing third clarinet, all your function is to match and play in tune. And if no one notices you were there, you just took the place of the guy, and they'll keep calling you. Oh, it was great. It was so easy with you in today. That's a great, you know, that was one of the best compliments.
You told me that. I remember when I got my first audition in 6th grade, and I made the all-county band in 6th grade, and I was like starting to get a little confident. You were like, always let your playing do the time. He was very on it. And I also, another thing I wanted to add to my upbringing is Dad was always complimentary and like proud of my work, but he never like hoisted me. You know what I mean? Like it was great. He was really good at the compliment sandwich after performances. Like I thought you know, being young and cocky is, you know, sometimes just a product of being young. And I'd get after a jazz concert and I would feel really good about my soul, and he'd be like, very, you know, I'm proud of you, good job, but ding, 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 ding.
Love it.
Let's work on it.
Always something
You know,
to reach for.
and I remember it was great. My mom was also a good opposite side of this, because she was the number one supporter of everything I ever did in my entire life.
She was.
And so she would come up to me. So Dad would always come up to me first at the concert and talk to me about the music, and then Mom would come up to me and she would always say, she'd be like, I'm so proud of you, Ryan. And she'd be like, your dad's really proud of you. Yeah. She'd always say, she's like, he was crying, but he'll never tell you that. But he really liked what you did. And so, you know, it was like a good,
great.
but it was also, for me, it was great because it always made me want to keep freaking pushing forward.
Yeah.
You know, there was never a moment, and this still happens today, where I'm like, you know what, that was perfect. I got to keep going. Because I always think about, if Dad was in the audience or any of my teachers in the audience, what would they say? What would, you know what I mean? It would just help me keep going more forward and always progressing, which was great. You never, you know, I know some parents, you know, of students that I've had before that think their son is Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? It's like, whatever they played is like, what do you mean they need to?
I know.
You know what I mean? And like, it's so great, because the tough love aspect, when done right, I think is the best way of improving. And I just want to keep making you more proud and all that stuff. You know what I mean? And
that's really cool. Yeah,
it's true. So we've been talking a lot about music and you know, things adjacent to music and stuff like that. But one thing that I think people who know you know about this because of your Instagram handle, and I know all of our family knows about this, and it's something that I look up to you for still to this day, is your work ethic when it comes to your athleticism and your dedication to training your body to be an Iron Man. You know, you are a multiple Iron Man. And you have an iron collarbone now too. So, so you're Iron Man in multiple ways. But maybe you can talk a little bit about what brought you to being a triathlete, not only at the hobbyist level, but like, you know, you were on the USA team for 1 year, which is pretty crazy. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that. What drawn you to it? Why do you keep doing it? What do you love about it? All that stuff.
Sure. Thanks. So I grew up, you know, in sports more than anything else. I mean, I was thinking about this today. You know, in my era, there was no video games or cell phones or whatever. So every kid tried to do sports. Some were more successful than others. I was never great at really any sport, but I tried all the sports, and I really liked it, right? So I never took off. I never played sports in high school or anything. I just did band, right? But I was, you know, I swam for a while. I loved all that. Anyway, so coming out of college, I was starting to get fat because I was drinking a lot of beer, as sometimes happens at college. So
were you underage?
Was I underage? No, not.
Okay,
no.
Doesn't matter.
Well, the drinking age was 18.
Yeah.
Was it really?
Oh yeah, back then, yeah.
Are you serious?
You didn't know that?
How did I not know this?
Yeah.
It was 18? Wow.
Well, regardless. Anyway, this was in college. I felt like I just wanted to have a little more fitness, and my brother was kind of always an athletic guy, so he was like, "Oh yeah, you know, if you're putting on weight, you should start running or doing something." So I started running in college, just kind of to relieve stress and just kind of get into running. And my brother did a triathlon back when he was at Indiana University. He's not a music guy; he's a business guy, but he did a triathlon. And he says, "Oh, you want to do this?"
Jeff.
Yeah, shout out to Uncle Jeff. And I swam, which is the main part of the triathlon. You have to be able to swim, like don't drown. So you have to be able to swim. And I swam competitively a little bit in high school and grade school. So I kind of still had the chops for that a little bit. So I did a little bit of training. Anybody can buy a bike and you can run. So yeah, like 1989, I did my first triathlon right after graduating college. And I'd been training for it, and I started lifting some more weights and whatever. So the music part of it was there, but I always wanted to kind of be involved in some kind of athletic thing. So when you move to Florida, guess what? You have great weather almost year round. So this kind of sport where you're outdoors biking if you can, running, swimming, either in open water if there's a lake around here, right, that isn't freezing, or pools, which there's a lot. I started getting into triathlon. I met some people and started training, and I just happened to be the guy that worked at Disney and whatever. So I just kept going with that. I mean, it was always been the side of me that's physical. That you don't really get. Well, you don't get that at all. To me, in being a musician, is you don't get that physical side where you're challenging your body physically to do something that makes it more fit. Music is mostly a mental kind of thing. It's different than triathlon. But I love the triathlon. I kept going with it because it had a chance to get me to be competitive with myself and others in a non-music environment. So I like the balance there, and I just kept going. And just through the 90s and everything, and with you guys and the kids and everything, I just trained as much as I could within the balance of the family. I didn't want it to take over. I didn't want it to be obsessive, so there's always a balance in there. And yeah, I just kept going. Now, there's the thing about the triathlon part is you can compete with people in your own age group. Like, it's not like I'm racing against guys that are 26 for the overall. Sometimes we can do pretty good depending on who's there, but you're always racing for, if you would like to do this, in an age group category of 5. So like right now I'm 55 to 59 age group. I'm in there, okay? So, so I get to go to events and do that, and there's camaraderie with people of your own age, and we can all relate to what's going on physically in our bodies at this time, and what it's like to wake up early, and what it's like to have a stiff back. Anyway, but it's great. The feeling racing triathlon, and when I do triathlon, the Ironmans are long, but everything is pretty much for me a race. Like, it's definitely, can you just survive it? No, I'm way past that. I mean, and a lot of people I know we're way past that. It's all about how efficient can you be with your body? How can you do the training, the nutrition, the transitioning between events at a race course? There's a whole bunch of stuff that keeps me competitive on that side. And I think about this a lot. The feeling when I'm putting my body into distress willingly to get fitter is completely different than the mental stress if I'm working on memorizing a solo for a recital, or if I'm in the park playing It's a Small World for the 3 billionth time and it's 90 degrees and I'm carrying the bass sax. That's a different mental thing to be a pro. So I like that aspect of it. And competitively, when you're out on the race course and you're pushing your body and there's people around you that you want to catch or whatnot, you really get to know yourself and what you can do. And I think that the limits of that totally help me as a person overall with life's problems that come up. And then also musically, just relating to the podcast, I think it gives me a calming sense of, okay, there's a process where I can work on this, and it's the same kind of goal setting as in triathlon. If I have a goal for this race or this workout or whatever, to me, it relates to doing the same thing with music practice and playing gigs, like the gig with you the other day. Yeah. I want to nail that. I want to play every low A right. I'm playing the Barry part right. I can't miss a low note. I'm doing all the tricks. I'm boosting my my index finger on this hand on every low B flat. I want to make sure it comes out just like when you're training. You want to maximize the workouts you have because you don't have a whole lot of time sometimes. You have to be very efficient. Yeah. So anyway, long-winded answer, but I love it. I race mainly in Florida. I do some events in the nation. I've never done the Hawaii Ironman. You have to qualify for that. I'm not fast enough for one. 2, it's super expensive to go out there, and I can't tell my family I'm spending $10,000 to go out to Hawaii for a week when I can do a race like in Claremont. It's the same distance. Anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with all that. I love it.
So how many Ironman length triathlons have you completed?
I've done 3, and I'll do my 4th one in Wisconsin in September. Ironman Wisconsin. I'm doing that. it's near the Chicago area. I can go up there with my brother. We can have a grand old time. I have some guys from high school that live in Wisconsin now, even though we were from Chicago. So I like to try and pick my races where I can have some kind of family or friend thing happening. So that'll be my 4th full. But like I do half Ironmans. I got one coming up next weekend. I do sprints where the races are like an hour long, but they're super intense and super hard for that short amount of time. In Florida, there's a lot of races because the weather's so good. So I'm.
What's really crazy is like growing up, being used to it was, just like, oh, Dad's going to do a triathlon. Okay, cool. And then as I got older, I realized, the amount of work and like thinking about putting myself through that would be just crazy. But also like talking about what he knows about his body is pretty crazy because he would tell us like the time he would fit, like to the minute. He's like, yeah, so I start at this time. I'll probably be in the transition area from the swim to the run, or from the swim to the bike this time. I'll get off the bike around here, and then if you want to, roll out of bed and come see me finish, I should finish at like 10, 13, and 28 seconds. And it's like, holy crap! And then like literally 10, 13, and 28 seconds. Oh, there he goes. It was crazy. Like he just knows. He just knows his body really
Practice
well.
makes permanent.
Right.
You know
You
it.
said it many times.
Man.
I love that one.
I love it. Yeah.
Dude,
It's great.
that stuff's insane. In a good way. My dad was a big bike rider for years. He'd done bike races and long bike rides and stuff, but I've never known anybody to do that like what you do. So, that's insane.
Being a musician is weird because not many musicians do that, and I know for a fact I was the only guy even close to that in the band I grew up with. Like most of the guys would be like, listen, never run unless you're being chased.
That's true. It's a survival skill.
They would make fun of me a lot. They would make fun of me a lot and just, why do you do that?
You know what we need? We need a hang podcast athletic competition between Zach Grooves, Michael Wilbur, and Scott Devlin.
Well, here's the thing. All three of them are really good at different activities.
True.
Like Zach Grooves could outlift all of them.
Yeah.
But Dad could outrun all of them.
After about 200 or 300 yards.
Yeah, sure. Like long distance.
Not a
I'm
sprint.
not going to sprint. At my age, I can't
don't think those guys
anybody.
are sprinters either. I don't know, but
No.
Well,
But, I'm just thinking. I'm just like,
that'd be fun. We should have a lifting competition between
the hang
three of them.
Olympics.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
At least an arm wrestle, maybe. That might
Yo,
be.
I think if Michael Wilbur and Zach Grooves arm wrestled, the world would explode because the amount of power between the two of them.
Yeah.
And then if you got in there too,
Is that the guy from Moon Hooch?
Yeah.
Oh, that dude. Yeah, he's jacked up.
How about me and you versus your dad? I think we might have a chance.
we might have a chance.
One hand for you.
You know, so funny
each.
when he broke his collarbone, I was like, I could finally beat him in arm wrestling.
needed a
I think it
handicap.
cured my slice.
It did. It
That's
really
so
did.
kept your elbow in.
The doctor was right.
Yeah, I told him before the surgery. I said, "Can you listen, man? If you do this
dude.
right,
If you could help me just hit this little baby draw.
The backstage antics were pretty epic.
Yeah.
But the minute the 4 whistles shot and everybody went out on the street, it was completely pro. Like, and engaging with the guests and the musicality.
Yeah.
But all the antics and all the face names and everything. I was the kid for like 5 years, right? And all the guys would tell me, "Don't never get married. What are you getting married for? Why would you get married?" Guys that had like 5 wives. 4 wives. They've been through the ringer. They got a lot of stories too, so you learn from that too. But as soon as they get on the street, it's all musicality and top notch. I mean, there's little moments with the guests where you can lighten up a little bit. I'm not saying that,
Sure.
But musicality wise, I was fortunate enough to be with a lot of musicians that had very high standards.
Yeah.
And that rubbed off on me a lot. And the advice and everything, But some of the face names, like, listen.
Give us
Yeah,
some
you
of
said.
your
Let's
best.
hear some of these. I'm curious.
Well, I think my favorite, we won't have to go on about that. My favorite face name, and you know this one,
Yeah.
is the piano player who was a great piano player. Well, he's a pretty good piano player, but for some reason, everybody that knew the piano players thought his face name was Mittens
Mittens.
as a piano player.
Because
It
think
was
about
like-
if you had Mittens playing piano. you know.
That one was one of the best ones. It described it, and everybody went, you know, it's kind of, yeah.
One of my favorites is your when a band director is on stage and talking too much, you call him Hannibal Lecture.
Hannibal Lecture is another one.
That's Mr. Pollock.
Oh, is it?
What?
That's Dave
really?
Pollock, man. Dude,
No.
I've gotten better with it. My students roast me all the time. They're like, "Hey, you only talked for 2 minutes this time."
Right,
I'm like, "Oh,
right.
thanks." Yeah. No, that's
My
me.
mom
I
hated it.
I don't like it, but I don't even realize
You don't realize you're doing it?
And then I get
Yeah.
off stage and I watch a video and I'm like, "Why am I talking so much?"
Yeah.
Hannibal Lecture. That's rough.
Shout out to Jeff Rupert. We'll cut that.
So there
I don't.
There was a lot of awesome guys with very unique personalities of all different ages. Guys in their late 60s all the way down to, I think when I started, I was 22 or 23, and everybody's got a history and everybody's got backstories. But like I said, the professionalism with everything is, once you're on stage, it's go time, and you do that. And it's the minute you're off stage, and it's like, and then the heat and the sweating, and guys, we're doing a 25-minute set, so God forbid I go 24-17. So I would my watch, because listen,
if you can physically move
you get
me
a
from
stage
this
manager
chair,
that's not a musician and coming from a different place, you're gonna be on the clock.
Yeah.
So 25 minutes is 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So I would set my watch and do it, and I would look and go, "Oh, we gotta squeeze another tune in," and then backstage it's like, "Why'd you call that last tune? We were on the thing." I said, "Oh, were we? Oh, really? Were we?"
Nice.
That was a story, and then I had a tune list taped to the bell or the pipe of my bass sax up the top that I could look at to make sure there was a variety. And I used to have this thing, and my Brian Snap would call it my whoopee. It was like a little blanket. I had this little thing in my pocket where it was like, Nick Saban calling an offensive scheme. I'd hold it up and go, "Shit, we played that song. God, we haven't played that in like 4 days. I better call that or we're going to get stale on it," right? So I would keep the rotation going, mainly for the guys, because, if you play the same 8 tunes every day, it's like, the guy from the Broadway show saying, you can go nuts after 6 months of playing a show. He wants a different scene.
Yeah.
Well, to prevent that, we learned as many tunes as we could, and then I was calling the tunes as leader, so I had to have these different sets and things that I could keep the rotation going just to keep the sanity.
Yeah.
And then you have to read the crowd and say, well, I'd love to play this tune, but if I play it now, it's going to go over like a lead balloon. We got to play supercalifragilistic. The kids are going to dance. It's going to be awesome. So anyway, I would tape that to my bass sax and have the whoopee, and Brian Snap would always snatch it from my fingers right before the set and put it in his pocket and go, "Okay, let's go." And he would make me call it on.
Nice.
And then one time I had like 12 copies in my pocket. So backstage he would sip it, he'd go, "Ha ha," and I'd pull out and go, "Ha ha." We would, yeah. But they appreciated that because we kept it going. At one point we did 1 week where we actually never repeated a tune, and that's 7 sets a day, 5 days. And we never repeated a tune. Now, our tunes are anything from, I don't know, probably a minute to 3 minutes. There's nothing, we had a couple of medleys that we could call, but there wasn't anything super long. So it was memorizable by the regular guys. But then if a sub came in, okay, you're the sub that knows 15 tunes. We're doing these 15 tunes.
Yeah.
And everyone knows it. They were totally cool. And the sub would know it, and they would learn as much as they can in rehearsal or on the breaks or whatever. And so we try to keep it going to bring the subs up to do it. But it's all about, man, a theme park gig is all about perseverance and just trying to not go insane, just like a Broadway tour, a show that goes on. It's the same, you're playing the same stuff a lot of the time that the guests expect to hear. And, the best way to lose your gig is to go away from that and get too hip and just play what you want. And then all of a sudden, you guys, we need something else here. They'll I've seen groups go down because of that. So
you got to play the gig, play to the room, and put your own ego aside. And one of the things I think might be tough for that too, just like a Broadway show, is you may have done the show 5,000 times, but it might be that person's first time ever seeing it.
Yep.
That day they saved up for a year to go to Disney World, and they're in this park for one day, and they want to see the sax quartet. Boom.
Yeah.
Even if you've played that same set 1,000 times, they've never heard it. Yep. So it has to be as, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I'm just kind of saying, just like same like a Broadway show or any show, like if you're playing, whether it's the same set or not, you have to kind of treat it like it's their first time, whether it is or not, you don't know, but you want to give them that experience of like that amazing show every time.
And nowadays everything's filmed anyway, so my bosses can go on YouTube and look up clips of all the groups and see if hey, these guys have been playing hi ho forever. I'm sure. What does it look like? Do they have energy?
Yeah.
Are they looking like they're not happy, or you know,
Yeah.
because the guests are seeing that, and now everything's saved, so it's even more important.
And I mean, somebody goes on YouTube because they're excited about coming to the park and they see some super energetic band. I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah.
And then if the band phones it in that day, they're going to be like, wait a minute.
Right.
What is this? I expect, it's like a restaurant. If everything's great and then all of a sudden you go one day and it's terrible, you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why is the quality down?
Yeah.
I mean, I think this can actually lead into another segment here. Hot takes.
Hot takes.
Musical hot takes.
I've got one right on my mind right now.
Or it doesn't even have to be musical. Okay. Ryan, you want to go?
Where's my fucking camera? Is this it? Is this mine? This one, okay.
Wow.
We're at Disney World right now, and we're talking about all this amazing live music. Where the fuck is it now? Why don't you hire live musicians? You know how much better my life was when people were playing live music at Disney World? I am where I am today in my life because of live music at Disney. How about you bring it back? A stereo system sucks. Anybody can buy a stereo system. Live music changes lives. We were at this Kenny G concert yesterday. People came up to us and Kenny saying that concert changed their life. Mm-hmm. Someone said that it healed them. Don't you go to Disney World to like be happy and like go to the happiest place on earth? Live music. You're in hundreds of photo albums throughout the years. There's YouTube videos of this saxophone quartet with millions of views. People love it. This company is multi-billion dollars.
Oh, yeah.
How are you saving money by not, you know what I mean?
I do.
Oh, Disneyland Shanghai went a little over budget. Let's cut the saxophone quartet.
Allegedly.
Fuck, come on. Well, whatever.
Yeah.
That's my hot take. I have other ones that we'll talk about later. Hire live musicians.
It's a great one.
Clip that. Okay,
Yeah.
Dad, now you're up.
Wow. Turned up the
I've been
heat in
feeling
here.
really passionate about that.
Yeah,
one.
no,
Man, that was great.
I've battled that my whole career. This is the greatest job with a continuous 2-week notice.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
Everybody says it.
Right.
They said it from day one, and they'll say it till
Right.
the last day of this. You know, yeah, it's you.
Yeah.
You don't know. You can do the best job you can possibly do. You know, we never missed a set. I can honestly say I think we missed in 15 years in the sax quartet. We missed because I screwed up once and forgot to book somebody. Like we missed six sets in one day, and that was it because I never let that happen again. But yeah, I mean, we would. Yeah, you got the consistency. It doesn't matter. Consistency is there. If somebody wants to go a different direction or whatever the speak is, you as a live musician, you're always in that. That being said, yeah, it's a different time. Focuses are different. The numbers of live musicians are down. There's more third party stuff. This is true for sure. But I see the guests' expression on their faces. It's something that they don't normally get to see.
Exactly.
So. You know, and the interaction and everything is there. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a lot of people get really frustrated. I'm kind of done being frustrated. I just want to concentrate on my playing and do the best job I can.
I get it.
And all that. But I was lucky to have 25 years full time on a day gig from 9 to 5 and be able to gig at night or teach or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I also think it has to do with people going up the ladder that aren't exposed, like people that are now in control of stuff that were never exposed to live music or whatever, or they're just purely number crunching and just worrying about that, but they're not actually worried about the guest experience at all times.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, we need music. Get canned music.
Yeah,
That solves that. Check that box. Next.
exactly, and it costs nothing.
It's not about the music. I mean, it is about the music. But someone that sits in front of the sax quartet to hear supercalifragilistic, they can go on YouTube and listen to it. They can go on Spotify and listen to it. But they're in front of you, watching you perform,
And
live.
at Disney too.
It's at Disney. It's like it's a whole thing.
You saw the quartet, and you were like, and your mom said you could do that, and now look at what you did. And I'm sure, I mean, I know I did, but I'm sure people that you saw, the kids, were like, oh my God, that guy's playing music at Disney World? I want to do that.
Yeah.
And it only
And I'm
grows.
sure they've heard it before. You hear it playing on a speaker, but that's they actually showed that they care about the process,
Yeah.
about the experience, about the realness of it,
Yeah.
of like seeing it in front of you and hearing it live and like, whoa, you're talking and doing this.
Like the Disney College Band just got canned. There's no more Disney College Band.
really?
That's right.
What?
Man.
It was canned in Florida first, and then
Yeah.
ran in California for probably, I don't know, about 10 years. And then they just finally, they
It's
cut that
completely
too.
out now.
Probably
on,
doesn't.
man.
I mean, it's hard for somebody that's a bean counter to say, well, does that make directly make money?
Which sucks.
I think back in the day it was more of an overall view of we need all this stuff because overall the guests get this, and now I think it's a little micromanaged. So you have to analyze. A lot of times the groups and the guys in the Main Street Phil run into the problem where too many people are stopping to watch them. And a manager sees that and well, they can't get here, there. There's a problem there with the logistics. So we run into that.
Imagine losing a gig because too many people come out to watch you. You know what I mean? Like that's insane. I mean, I kind of get it, I guess, but like it's a shame that that's the solution isn't like try to make it work. The solution is, well, just like don't do it. No, they already paid to be here anyway. Cut it.
And there's a lot of people there too. Like sometimes, I mean, the parks are so crowded at times. A lot of time.
Yeah.
So they get more people in the park. It's hard to put groups and find places to play because we're basically those guys are on the street. There's
Right.
no set stage.
Yeah.
There used to be set stages where you could just sit down and listen to the band play, and all that. But that's
I'm sure
those
people would
days-
love that.
I don't know. I mean, I think so, of
Well,
course.
yeah.
But I know where a lot of the overall views are going. It doesn't seem like it's real positive on that aspect. But then again, there's a cruise line, there's other gigs, there's recording, there's third party stuff. There's it's morphing a little bit, and luckily, it's still hanging on. But I sound like an old guy, but in my heyday, I was lucky to have there's 280 full-time musician gigs when I first came in, and now there's 40?
Three?
I mean, no sax players. I hate to say it. The Grand Floridian was the last group.
You were subbing
to
in
go
that,
down. And that was the primo gig. That was an indoor gig, almost all improv, reading great charts. Their book was
It's all
double
standards.
thick.
Whoa.
In-house
Really?
arrangements,
Yeah.
great stuff. 6-piece band. Yeah.
You basically Rex Wartz was the
Ugh.
saxophone player who's a legend,
Killer.
for many years, and
those guys.
and man, I mean, we would go watch them even before Dad was subbing with them, and they were just playing Disney tunes or standards, and everybody would take a couple chords. It was a club date
Society
at the
band.
Grand Floridian.
Perfect match. They call it brand essence. Perfect match for what the hotel was at that era. And there's a live band playing just like you would see, but not anymore.
It was a 5-star hotel. Now it's no longer because there's no band. Because
That's
the
what happens.
requirements is either an underground parking garage
Right.
or a band.
That was always the joke with that band. As soon as we see a bulldozer, we're screwed, guys. They're going to build a
Pack your
garage. And
bags.
we're,
That's so funny.
That's a true story. Did you see the bobcat out there? What,
Oh,
the
no.
bobcat, the animal? No. The thing that scoops up concrete.
Yeah.
We're doomed.
We're doomed. That's it.
Unhook the
Our
battery.
days are numbered.
Take your battery out.
Yeah.
So wait, this is still all your hot take.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
What about
I'm
your
sorry.
hot take?
I'm-
No, it's
I'm
great.
hogging.
But
Do you have
want-
one? I'm still thinking.
I always have a bunch, and I have a hot take. It's not a hot take because I know everybody's going to agree with me.
Uh-oh.
So you just brought up airlines. So
Oh, yeah.
listen, I understand things happen. I totally get it. I understand that when you're dealing with large machinery, sometimes things break down. Sometimes
Right.
you have to fix things. 4 hours before flight, I get a text coming here saying, "Hey, your flight's been canceled. We rebooked you on some other flight that was would have missed the Kenny G concert." And I was like, "This ain't gonna work." And then I'm trying, nothing. So I end up finding another airline out of a different airport. I booked that. And the original one, they're like, "Hey, because your flight was canceled, we'll give you your money back." Okay. But the stress of running around and doing that and now having to go to a different airport and I had to get a ride and it was a whole thing. They just, give you your money back. 0-0. No.
Yeah, right,
no.
right.
Where's the, and I don't
You should get a gift
expect a
card,
lot.
too.
Just something hey, we'll give you a $50. You don't have to give me a full free flight or
Right.
something.
Something.
But you caused I was stressed because I
Yeah.
had to come home and I was running. I was getting ready to leave to go to the train station.
I know, yeah,
Imagine if
yeah.
I was up there at the wrong airport and they
Oh,
canceled the
God.
flight. And like I said, I know they can't control everything. I get it. But like you like that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth, especially because this wasn't one of the budget carriers. This wasn't Spirit or Frontier or whatever. This was like one of the major.
You can name them.
Oh, I'm going to. Okay. Freaking United. United, isn't that the same one where like they were beating up the passengers and stuff a couple years back? Remember the flight attendant was like dragging.
It was a baggage claim guy.
Oh,
like
okay.
Bag
Well, listen, I don't want to say anything about the United people or anything there. It's not their fault, but it was someone did something. It was like, oh, we're just taking your plane out of service 4 hours before the flight. So if something was wrong with that plane, did it fly into Newark and then they realized something was wrong?
Supposedly.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like 4 hours before? I get it. Once again.
Also,
if had a flat tire.
they have other planes. Like
yeah. And, it's a Newark to Florida. And they said ahead
Newark
of time,
is a hub for United.
Yes. And going to Orlando.
Yeah,
so,
come on.
listen, I'm going to a Kenny G concert, which obviously is more important than anything than everybody else was doing. But, like, the amount of families that were going to Disney probably that day, because it was like an early afternoon flight.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, we'll just book you for a flight 6 hours later or something. And I'm like, I know it's the same day, and I know like they did the rebooking, but like that doesn't work. Like I would have missed the concert. Like what if I was playing that concert?
Yeah.
You know, well, it's just they can do, and I don't ask for a lot. Just like show a little bit of like, listen, we're actually like just giving you your money back for even for a flight that I paid for.
Yeah.
For you to just cancel last minute, it's like, come on, just show just a little bit.
Yeah.
A food voucher, I'll take whatever.
Yeah,
I'm not being greedy. I just show a little bit of, whatever.
I agree.
don't know. Mm-hmm. It's like whatever. Like imagine you go to a restaurant, imagine you go to your favorite place, Starbucks, right? And you open up your drink and there's like a cockroach inside. And you're like, dude, there's a cockroach. Like, oh, we'll just give you your money back.
Right.
Like, no, they'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, here's a new drink. We made sure it's clean. Like, what else can we do for you? You want some food?
You want some sandwiches? Yeah.
It's a big Disney thing now. They'll
they take care of you.
Yeah, there was an
image, man. They care about that stuff.
Yeah.
If you drop your Coke on Main Street, you get a new one. Stuff like that.
Instead of being like, that's your fault for dropping it.
Right.
They don't even really have to do that.
They're trying to do
but I'm sure, but it's a family thing. I'm sure tons of kids are just like dropping stuff all over. And the parents are like, yo, I spent $10 on this Coke. Like, come on, hook it up.
Well, people are always looking for a scam. And
so they drink like half of it.
Well, and like the latest thing in the news that I happen to pick up, and I don't watch a lot of news, but when I pick this up, off the internet is, people come to Disney and they fake like a handicap pass.
Oh my God!
To get ahead of the rides, and so that's stuff like that.
See, that's I mean, come on, that's taking advantage of the system. That's.
Do you have one yet? I have another one. If you were still waiting.
No, but taking advantage of the system, there's when you're a musician here in the park, you have to think of how can I help my guys in the group be more comfortable. So there are things that we as musicians and access that we can help with, I wouldn't say it's against anything. Certainly nothing when we're on stage. Of course, never that.
What was your other hot take?
I'll share it shortly. It's a short one. My other hot take is if we haven't talked in a while, like if we're friends, and like, but we go like maybe even a year.
I have another one.
Or 6 months or whatever. Don't just hit me up and ask me for information. Like I had a person hit me up the other day that was like asking for a booker's information for a club that I play at a lot. I haven't talked to this person in months.
Oh, and they just fire away. They
just like, hey, how can you help me?
Here's the right.
Can you do me a favor?
And it's like we were close at a certain point, and now we're not really. And whatever, that happens. I mean, we're all busy. But like, you know what I mean? Yeah. For me, like, even if I think of somebody that like maybe has some information or something that I would like to maybe learn from them or whatever, I always make it present that I want to talk to them first, which is true. I never want to think I'm taking advantage of anybody, especially for information. Like I try and like call somebody, how's it going? How's the family? What's the weather like? Like have a conversation, and not even on the first phone call, not even mention the thing that I wanted or whatever. You know what I mean? Because like I never want it to be like, it just makes me upset and it makes me never want to talk to that person again. Yeah, because you're just using me.
They figure they're going just for their needs and they can't ask you how you're doing. Or
Come on, man. At least be polite.
You're probably down to help them, but when it's just like the first thing they say.
Yes.
And there's nothing else. It's like, wait
Yes.
a minute, do you actually like me as a friend or whatever?
Yeah.
Or you just
Kind of
you know?
adjacent to that is I had a person in college or at NEC in grad school that we were friends during school, and then we kind of had a falling out, whatever. And then I about this last year, so I've graduated a year ago, and he left school early. Anyway, he was on a gig with one of my friends, and then he's like telling people that he's like my best friend and he's going to my wedding and all this stuff, and I'm like, what? I haven't talked to this guy in 6 months or a year. What are you talking about? And he's just like name dropping. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Don't name drop.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. Anyway,
Yeah, I have another one related to music. This is the common one. This isn't just me, but I deal with it, and I still see it being, still seeing happen. If you want to call someone for a gig, for a recording session, you're asking someone if they're available to do something. Don't message them and say, "Hey, are you free on Saturday?"
right.
Well, that entirely depends.
Right.
That
Right.
entirely depends on the
Right.
situation, because I don't
What
want to
are
say
these
I'm
details? Yeah.
because it also puts the person you're asking in a bad spot. If you ask me, "Are you free Saturday?" and I say yes, and then you say, "Hey, I have this really cool gig. It's this," and I deem it not to be cool, then I'm turning it down
yeah.
after saying I'm free, and it's a weird position. So when you reach out, you have to give all the information, right? You have
Yeah.
to get all the information you can. So, and even if you don't have it all, like, for example, there's a private gig I'm actually going to be doing, which I don't do many of those anymore, but I had almost all the information except for the exact time we're playing. They said, "Hey, it's 1 hour of playing between like 2 and 5. And so when I reached out to the band, I said, "Hey guys, here's what it pays."
that
I said,
quartet?
"Hey, it's a trio."
Oh, cool.
It's like, cordless trio for a private event.
Let's
Kind of
go.
strange. Yeah, I know.
Long
I'm
notes
like,
only.
yeah. And they were like, "Just play standards." I'm like, "Oh, baby.
boy.
Cordless. Let's go.
Let's go.
Drums, bass, sax." So I was like, "Hey guys, hey, drummer, bass, whoever it is, hey, I have a private gig. Here's where it is. Here's how much it pays. Here's what we're playing." And I said, it's between these hours. I said, we're playing 1 hour between 2 and 5. I said, I don't know exactly yet, but it'll be between 2 and 5 for 1 hour of playing. Are you able to do it? Do you want to do it? Let me know.
Yeah.
And then they have all the information, so they
Yeah.
can say yes or no
Yep,
or
yep.
whatever. Then I know, because if I just said to them, "Hey man, you free between 2 and 5 on next Saturday?"
Yeah.
They'll be like, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yes, depending. So just, I guess the hot take is, when you reach out to people for a gig or for anything, give them all the information you have.
Yeah.
Give them everything up front, and then they can make the decision. And it doesn't put them in a bad spot, and you get the right answer. Because if, just say they're not free, but you're like, just say you had a gig that pays 20 grand, and you're like, "Hey, you free next Saturday?" But they were planning on like going to Disney World or Six Flags for the day, and they're like, "Nah, I'm free. I'm busy. I'm going to Disney World." They're like, "Okay, never mind." But like,
Yeah.
yo, if you told me it was 20 grand, I can cancel those plans.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
just, you got to say what the thing is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all.
Details.
So just, details are important, guys. So just
Some
get
do,
them.
some don't, right? Like you get a mix.
Yeah.
Some people you get all out front.
All
It's
of it,
really
yep.
cool, and you can tell it's going to be cool. And then you want to take
Yeah.
the gig, and then sometimes
And I do it. And even when I text, I don't even put it. I literally put like bullet points. I said, "Here are the details for the gig: :
Yep.
2 hours, jazz standards, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Saturday the date at this location. You need upright bass. You don't
Yeah,
need to bring
yeah.
it, and as many details as you can.
Suit.
By the way, you have to wear a suit. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
outside. It's inside.
Yep.
We're getting fed. We're not getting fed. Every
Yep.
detail you can. And this is probably more for younger players out there. Maybe not. But just give all the information, because
Yeah.
it's so like, they can then make the decision.
Yep.
You know. That's the most professional people do that.
Yeah.
They give you all the information. They get the information.
it's a business.
It is.
You're a business, and music is a business.
Yeah.
Sorry,
It's
is.
yeah, the business of
It's an art
music.
form, but it's as much a business as anything else. You know.
Yeah, when we start talking about working the job or not and getting paid,
Yeah.
it becomes there's a business side to it.
Yep.
It doesn't devalue the art.
Right.
It's just it's another part of it.
Yep.
You know? So
Absolutely.
yeah. Take care of that side, guys.
Did you think of one yet?
Come on, we're stalling long enough here.
I'm.
Doesn't have to be about music even. It could be about life. Like,
Whatever.
We're talking so much about music, and
Oh, yeah, it can
I don't
be.
know.
It
You'd
I
be
mean,
like, why do people?
What about
not-
like students? You teach a lot of students. Like, is there a pet
Okay.
peeve you have with like students? Maybe like if a kid ever come to you with bad habits and you're like, why'd you do that? And they're like, well, this teacher told me to always play B flat 1 and 1. And you're like, what?
But so that stuff like would be a hot take for me, because that to me I have to be really, really deeply irritated for it to affect my mojo.
It takes a
Yeah.
lot for him to be
Yeah.
irritated. He's very like this.
I think that keeps me mentally healthy by trying to do that. Like if you're driving and somebody cuts you off, I might laugh, but I don't. I'm not giving the I'm not honking. I don't know if I've
from
honked
New
my
Jersey.
horn.
You're from New Jersey. That's like a.
No,
that's like
he never honked his horn in the history of my life.
Not really.
That's
I
like
don't
you
know.
walked up and kicked me
It's
between the
wasted.
legs. That's the same thing. I'm going to react the same way.
It's totally wasted. Why would I waste mental energy on that?
No, you have to let them know how stupid they are and how
I know
waste
people
of
that do that.
space that
I
you're
get
looking
that.
at one right now.
Yeah, no, I get that. No, for
Listen,
sure.
I can't help it.
It's
in
a
my
cultural
blood.
thing in
Yeah.
Jersey.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, of course. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, Chicago too, and everything.
Well, yeah.
It depends on it really just depends on the person.
Yes. Yeah, because
I'll take
Kate is not like that. She's very like, okay, it's fine.
Riley too.
Yeah.
I was like, Riley, you're driving in Boston. You have to be aggressive, or they're going to take advantage of you.
He's like, no, it's okay.
She's like, I don't know. I just want to make sure I get there safe.
That's why.
Like,
they're
it's
gonna-
not the point.
That's why they're going
Right,
to outlive
right,
us.
right, right.
Yeah, right. We're going to die at 45, and they're yeah.
I get done driving every time. I'm just like exhausted, and like tense. Dave, it was a 20-minute drive. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You are a good driver, though.
Thank you.
In New
Everybody-
York, you're a good driver.
you gotta pick your spot and go.
Here you're in a tourist town, so you run into
Yeah.
all different.
Oh,
People have
man.
no idea where they're going.
On
Everybody's
the way
in a
here, there was a
rent-a-car,
whole
and
bunch
there's,
of people slowing down and take photos and the whole thing. I'm like, yo.
Yeah, you find your way around to try and get into places like at Disney, in and
Yeah.
out. Yeah, I mean,
Ooh. I don't, maybe this isn't like necessarily a hot take, but if you don't have anything, let me ask you this. Did you ever have any weird interactions with guests? Like maybe coming too close to you, take photos or videos or touching you or grabbing the saxophone or
I have so many
requesting songs or
sure,
Yeah.
oh,
like-
yeah, all that.
Yeah.
People that we have people grab your instrument neck and put it in their mouth to take a photo.
What?
Oh yeah. Oh dude, I have so many people wanting to.
That's
play
probably pre-COVID.
Careless Whisper. We're at Disney.
Yeah,
Can you
of
guys
course.
play Careless Whisper? I mean that. We have that, and we have a joke that
Freebird.
kind of gets around it. Well, we don't know that song, but we have another song that has a lot of the same notes.
Yeah.
We get, but yeah, there are.
We don't know Careless Whisper. We can play Can You Feel the Love Tonight?
You're right.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of same notes. Yeah,
Same 12.
We've run into all that, and all the groups have their stories of fanatic fans or people that get a little too close, or requests that are weird, or strange photos and things like that. We would always try and take photos while we were playing, because any kind of dead air isn't all that great, because we're an acoustic group, so that you only really hear us within a certain amount of frame of space. So we can grab an audience if they can hear us, but if we're taking a photo and we're not playing, so there's a blend on that. But yeah, they'll take their hats off and put them on your head, or they take the hat off your head and try to put it on them. There's a lot of disregard for.
Stop touching people.
Yeah, I
What are
get
you guys
touched.
doing?
Yeah, people have. Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Did you ever knock a kid over with your bass sax?
So that's a great story. So no, I've hit things that weren't human that have
that's
damaged
good.
the sax. Elevator doors, stairwell railings, doors to dropping things, the sax. But we had the strap that I had was metal on metal, so it wasn't going to break. And then when the eyelets would start to wear, and there were 3 eyelets on the bass because there was 3 guys that subbed the bass, and we were all different heights.
Sure.
So the eyelets, we had soldered eyelets for the bass sax because we all shared the same bass sax. Just switch mouthpieces.
Was it a
out.
Disney-owned horn?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
That's a funny story. You want to hear a funny story?
I do.
So
Oh,
I
man,
played a
this is
Kyle
crazy.
Worth bass sax for maybe the first 5 years. Okay. And it only goes up to E flat. There was only 2 palm keys, and it was nice,
ancient.
but the sound wasn't great. It was what they had. They gave
Sopranos,
us
by the way,
play
shouldn't
this.
have any palm keys, but that's a separate. Maybe one. Maybe just a D. That's it.
Picking up
Sorry.
an octave in tacit. But so when I saw on the early days of the internet on USA Horn, someone was selling a Selmer Series 2 bass for like 18 grand, mint condition. Like somebody bought it and said, or maybe their wife said, "Are you kidding me? Get rid of it or get rid of me." So I don't know. So I went to my boss, who at the time happened to be, luckily, married to a great drummer in town that was a Disney musician as well. And I went to her and I said, because I would never have been able to do this with someone else that was not a musician, because 18 grand, are you kidding me? Why
Yeah.
don't we have a bass sax already? Yeah. So I went to her and I said, I got that. I saw this on the internet. we would love to have a new bass sax. This one's shinier. You know, I was doing all the plays, and she's like, she thinks about it for such a cool chick. She thinks about it for about 2 or 3 seconds. She goes, "What does that bass sax weigh?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. I'd have to look it up." She goes, "No, it weighs less than the one you have now, right?" And I went, "This is the coolest, smartest
awesome.
thinking." And I said, "Yes, it weighs less." She goes, "It weighs less. This is great because safety begins with me."
Wow.
So
that's cool.
Within a couple of days,
Man.
a guy from what do they call that when you buy something? Procurement comes up to the office that we were at with my boss, my super boss, and I said, "Here's this bass sax we're thinking about buying." He goes, "What are we buying? A bass sax? Oh, what is that? Okay, well, a bass sax. How much is it?" And I go, "It's $18,000." He's like, "I'm sorry. Well, how much was that?" I said, $18,000. It's $18,000. Sorry, man. He's like, "How many do you want?" Because he was used to buy, he's in procurement. He doesn't care he was buying air conditioning systems and stuff that's like 500 grand.
Yeah.
And he's like, 18 grand. He's like, almost, I got that right here.
That's a rounding error for them.
So
Yeah.
now I couldn't say, "Oh, get me 3," because there was only one. I mean, they
Can you imagine?
make bass saxes to order.
Whoa.
In fact, I tried to call Kiowa to get a new Kiowa, and they said there's a 4-year wait. And I'm like, I'm at Disney World. They're like, 4.5-year wait.
Man.
Yeah. So anyway, we ended up getting the bass, okay, and we ended up playing it. It's great, and everything, and the 3 eyelets, and yeah. So that was one of the rare times where everything, like the planets aligned, and we had the right people in the right place at the right time. They understood the music and all that, and understood what it was to be able to get what the musicians wanted.
You never know until you ask, though. If you never asked, you wouldn't have gotten it. And the worst they could say is no. You went respectfully.
Right. But if I didn't know her, I probably wouldn't have. I probably would have been way more shy to ask.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because here I am, I just love musician. I'm a cast member. I think it's important. But I go up there and I ask to spend that much money, and we already have a sax.
And didn't they get like a new tenor and alto too, like at one point?
So I think it was after that.
It was when New Fantasyland was built.
Yes. Well, that was because we were a new group in a new land with new costumes and everything. So I went to the company. No one came to me, and I went to say, "We should have new horns, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, right?" So I said, "Well, we want these. And I just fired away with like all Selmer's references, all this stuff, right? And yeah, they got them. And I remember saying, I didn't tell the guys, and then they showed up because a lot of the guys wanted to play their own horns. But when they had something of this level and they were shiny and they understood that, for a while they wanted a curved soprano because a couple of the directors at Disney said, well, if they're all the same look, it looks better. See what I'm saying? You're going, well, okay, so we got a nice curved soprano, and we would work it that way. But yeah. A lot of stories. You guys are so great to ask.
This has been.
I could talk for a lot longer.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do a part 2 for this.
This side of it's so cool, to hear, because I don't know all this stuff. I don't know any park musicians, and I don't know this stuff. So it's great to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Man, this has been so much fun.
Oh,
thanks for
I'm
doing
so
this.
honored because all the podcasts have been great with you guys, and love your personality, and of course I'm very proud of you and everything you're doing, and
beautiful.
Mom is proud of you as well. Gosh, and all that. So I really thank you guys for having me on. After following all those other people, I feel honored.
Well, you were top of the list, and I wouldn't want anybody else to be my dad.
Oh man,
Aw.
Love you.
Okay.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being with us,
You're welcome,
Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks for being in
Dave.
Florida,
Dude, it's been a blast.
Dan.
holding the camera the whole time, dude.
Well, so there's a thing here where we have never introduced him in front of the camera, so no one knows if he's real.
That might
So
be AI
Do you think
holding
he's
the
real,
camera.
or is he?
Hey, he's real. He's wearing a Wrong Notes Only shirt too. Man.
There you go.
I was thinking about wearing that today. But
Oh man,
You don't want to match?
So we have a saying. I know you know this that we like to say with our
yeah.
guests. So
Oh,
I'm
I
gonna
know.
go.
Are you ready?
I'm gonna go
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, and then we'll say it.
Okay.
Remember, the hang is more important than the gig.
See you, everybody.
Bye.
All right.
You can't see my balls, can you? Just want to make sure, because that's old guys people are gonna look and go, yeah.
They're probably on the floor by now.
Yeah, but don't put your legs together too much, and you'll squeeze them together. And,
that's okay.
And then all of a sudden your voice will go up 3 octaves.
Don't worry. This is the content you guys came here for.